Okay, Thursday's practice. Still cleaning things up. We've got a lot of work to do. As we talked about all week, we have a huge challenge in front of us versus a very underrated team that very easily could be 6-1. So we'll keep plugging away and get ready to go on a trip and work to get a win and get back on that plane.
Any determination yet in terms of the left tackle spot?
No, not yet.
Second corner still a competition?
Yeah, sure is. A number of guys played last week, and we'll probably keep with that format, getting guys in the game and keep evaluating guys.
With all the scrutiny over there this year, what can you say about the play of Mikkel on the opposite side?
Yeah, he's played great. He's a really special kid, special player. I feel bad for him sometimes because the ball didn't get thrown to him. So we haven't held up. Made people do it.
This defensive line has averaged more sacks per game than any since Wild Bunch 2. Just what have you seen out of them, and why do you think they're so successful?
Well, I think it's about work and preparation. I think that if you go back to training camp, they were a big question from us as coaches, from the media, from everybody, because a lot of them hadn't played. And so, to do what they've done already has been great. And obviously we're going to need them with some big-time offenses coming up.
Going back to Mikkel, what kind of relationship do you have with him as a defensive player? He's someone you took with you in Tennessee. How's that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. Calling plays on offense and running offensive meetings, you tend to have more of a relationship with offensive players. That's just natural, not done on purpose, and especially the skilled guys because you're around them so much, calling plays. But Mikkel is one of those defensive guys that, for whatever reason, kind of feels like an offensive guy as much as we talk. And probably a lot of that goes back to the recruiting of him coming and then coming out here and kind of, he came out here for us. And so it's been a really good relationship. We have a really good relationship with his family too.
Lane, regarding left tackle, not speaking specifically, but in your history, if you need to go that route and go with a real young guy, how comfortable are you putting a real young guy in that spot?
Yeah, we're really comfortable in this situation. Halfway through the year, and he's played over there, and he's done really well for us. So it would be a little bit different if it was the opener we didn't know outside of practice. So if he plays, I think he'll play really well, just like he has.
What kind of challenge do the linebackers have facing an offense like this, and do you think that this is kind of what you made Dion Bailey, switch to Sam for?
Yeah, it definitely is. This is a big challenge for our defense. These guys have put up a ton of points and a ton of yards on some really good defenses. And so it's unusual to have a spread system that can throw the ball so well and run the ball so well. We got to play really, really good.
Lane, when you made the philosophical switch to go to smaller, faster linebackers, is this the type of offense that you had in mind, trying to stop when you do that?
Yeah, definitely, and you see that in the movement of moving Dion, but also Tony Burnett. There's a guy who was corner at one point, and so those guys rotate in there and play the same spot, for those reasons, so that we can be around the ball more, especially as they're sitting in the slots, and so many runs come out to them, with quarterback runs and these type of systems.
How has this week been for Matt? There was so much last week to build up records and all that. What's your sense of kind of how he's been mentally this week?
He's been great. I think this is a really big challenge for Matt, to go back on the road, and really last time out of LA, game that I think is national in its slot, and so it'll be a challenge for him to play really well on the road and then come back home and finish it off.
With all the focus last week on, the individual records and things like that, is it almost a good thing to have a game like that, to have in Arizona that you can really focus on?
Well, I think it was good to get the stuff out of the way, in a sense, to get them over with and not be sitting there with one left and going on the road, one catch or one touchdown or something like that. So it was obviously exciting to get it done with the fans and early enough that everybody was still there. So that was really good, and now we're just back to playing ball. And so I think I know our players know that this is a really good opponent. The more you watch them, they're really, really good. And like I said, they're ahead of both of those games. They lose to Oregon. Outside of that, they're ahead of both of those games, and very easily could be 6-1. Stanford's defense is for a team to score 48 points midway through the fourth quarter on them and throw for over 400 yards. Says a lot.
How do you explain what happened in that Oregon game, though? I know you can't totally, say, okay, they lost to this team, and this, like you say, but I mean, you can't discount that margin of victory.
Well, I think you look at the turnover margin, how lopsided it was. It was just one of those games. Things just started going, things started going that direction, and then they went for it a couple times down there. I think figuring they needed to score touchdowns instead of getting field goals. But also, look, that's not the first time that's happened to good teams, in Eugene at night. And so that's happened to a lot of people. There's a reason that I don't know what the numbers are, but outside of us, I don't think they've lost at home for a couple of years. There's a reason for that.
You haven't talked that much about turnovers, but you guys are, I guess, the second most in the country. How did that happen, do you think, that all of a sudden the switch went on? Because that's the thing people have been hoping for and haven't seen.
Yeah, I think like the negatives too. Too much credit on those things. There's going to be coaching that all of a sudden we coached completely different, and then now we don't know how to coach against penalties, even though we led the conference in least penalties last year. So it just happens. Sometimes you just stay with your principles, you keep working on them, and then they start happening. A lot of credit. I would say a lot of that has to do with the guys being in the system longer. You do have a veteran group on defense, especially with the DBs that have played a lot of snaps back there, and it showed up. And the pass rush has definitely helped.
What are the rules in terms of substitution? If they substitute offensively, does that mean you have a chance to substitute as well? How does that work when you're trying to rotate guys in?
With no huddle? Yeah. If a no huddle team substitutes and a guy comes from their sidelines, the refs will look to your sidelines and give you 3 seconds. If you're substituting, they'll stand over the ball and hold them until you get out there and get lined up. If you're not substituting, they just let them